Hello and welcome to Rock, Paper, Shotgun. This is Matthew speaking, and today we are looking at Vampire The Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Now this is actually capture of our hands-off demo at E3, but we sat there making all the decisions, but we are going to talk you through it. This is a quest called Undertaking, takes place about 90 minutes into the game. This is at the start of the mission. We are inside your haven, which is your base of operations. If you listen very carefully, you might hear a familiar voice on the radio. That's the voice of Brian Mitsoda, the kind of designer, lead writer of Bloodlines 2.
Camera 2 nights ago has been identified as a notorious bandit. Specifically, a large raccoon that security guards have affectionately named Bonkers.
At this moment in the game, we are a thin-blood vampire, which is kind of bottom of the vampire social structure. So the focus here is on kind of ingratiating yourself with the higher vampires, sort of kindred. And we're going to do this. We're going to go and do a favour. We've been called to a nightclub by a text message, so we're going to pop out. But as we do, I'm quickly going to pause the video and explain that thing that's popped up at the top, Masquerade area. Now, if you're completely new to the world of Vampire the Masquerade, this is quite a key mechanic. So in the world of Vampire the Masquerade itself is almost a set of rules that the vampires adhere to in order to stay hidden from the public. So it's like not using your vampire form, your vampire powers when you're in public places. These are marked in the game by this little thing that flashes up, a Masquerade area. It's basically a warning. Don't do any vampy stuff. So when you see that little mask, that's what that signifies. So let's carry on. This is Seattle, where the game is set. This is actually Pioneer Square, which if you've been to Seattle, or if you, like me, haven't been to Seattle, but have had a quick little look on Google Maps, you'll see that it's a very accurate recreation of the city. It's one of the oldest neighbourhoods in Seattle. They really wanted a faithful version of the area, so even though it's sort of scaled down in size, the layout is accurate. Look right down to this parking lot over here, which looks absolutely bizarre on Google Maps. The game is set perpetually at 1 AM, which means the streets are kind of empty. There are some stragglers around. It also means you're kind of safe to walk around without burning to a crisp, which is nice. And we are going to head into the Atrium nightclub, where we are looking for our vampire contact. But not before we have a little dance. Look at this. This is amazing. This truly is a role-playing fantasy of mine. I'd be one of the people standing over by the tables looking at this chap going, oh god, I simply don't have moves like that. There are different vampire clans in the games. You don't have to side with any one particular faction, but they do for the purposes of this demo. In the final game, you can go off and work with other people. You can find other contacts with other factions. The person demoing this even says you might be able to sort of pit factions against each other to your benefit, which sounds interesting. But let's listen to this chat here.
Hello there. I'm happy to see you accepted my invitation. Of course, and I don't want to waste your time. All I need you to do is to find a thin-blood by the name of Slug. He's in hiding. But the Nosferatu most likely know where he is. Once you find Slug, all you have to do is purchase some information off of him. It sounds simple, I know. And while I would usually handle something like this myself, Slug has made it clear that he doesn't trust my people, for whatever reason. So, can I count on you to get this done for me? Good. Here's the money for the information. Make sure Slug delivers. If he attempts to back out of the deal, feel free to use whatever methods are needed to get him to comply. Until then, I'll be waiting here for you. I look forward to your results.
There's actually a really good article on Rock Paper Shotgun, the website, at the moment, where Alice, who's kind of our resident Vampire the Masquerade superfan, has written a little essay in sort of support of this new lady vampire character who she's quite taken with. I'll put a link in the description. So we're back on the streets. We're now looking for a new contact. This is one of the Nosferatu clan vampires. There are lots of different vampire types in the world, and as we'll see in a second, the Nosferatus are, they have to keep to the shadows for obvious reasons. This is another landmark. You've got the Seattle Underground, quite a famous tourist attraction. They basically found this layer of the city underneath the kind of modern city that you can go down and explore. So I think they're quite keen to emphasise how you can sort of visit key parts of the city. I've actually heard in an interview Brian Mitsuda say that you may meet historical figures from Seattle's past, you know, because of the whole undead angle, which could be quite cool. Quickly pausing before we listen to what Samuel has to say, he is part of the Nosferatu clan, which is a sort of horribly disfigured type of vampire, more your classic sort of vampire idea, I guess. They describe it as a walking masquerade violation, as in where he simply to step out his front door, the members of the public would see that vampires exist, so that's basically a no-no. It means they live underground in these dark, miserable places. They've become sort of the information brokers of the world.
I assume your handlers have sent you to find our smelly friend. No, they weren't. I can help. You can find Slug under the freeway, a bit south of the square in a place the locals call the jungle. He's smart enough to hide among the homeless down there, but not quite smart enough to do it well. You'll find the entrance near King Street Station, but you'll want to watch yourself. Slug is a coward, but he survived this long on his own, so he's bound to be a handful. He's also not the only one you'll need to look out for. Lots of unsavory animals in the jungle. Adorable. You can go.
So we were actually quite curt with this character and we didn't really engage with him. We have the freedom to kind of be quite dismissive, and because of this we actually missed out on a second mission objective, which he would ask you to kill the person that the Lady Vampire has asked us to go and hunt down. So here, I'm just going to pause very quickly. You'll see the blind spot at the top of the screen. So this is to denote a area where you can use your vampire powers. You know, you're not out in the public eye, you're a bit more shielded, so you're kind of free to vamp it up, unlike the masquerade areas. So another thing I've heard them talk about in interviews is the desire for the city to have a bit more verticality to it, to show off some of your physical vampire skills, like this climbing here. Also, just very quickly, we're going to focus in on this crane. Apparently, Seattle is famous for its cranes, which is something I didn't know until this presentation. I found the headline. Apparently, Seattle has the most cranes, or did as of January 2019, of any American city, which is why you can look up and expect to see lots of these lovely things. I really like the idea of game developers just putting in their kind of gripes with their local area into their games. If I made a game set in Bath, there'd just be seagulls everywhere, constantly pecking at your bin bags, those feathery bastards. Again, this is another famous landmark. This is King Street Station. Let's flash up a little picture, see how accurately they've created it. You'll notice also lots of Christmas lights everywhere. I love a game set at Christmas, especially when it's not out at Christmas. It's like a little second Christmas that arrives a bit later in the year. So here we're going to actually see some of the combat. A quick note on the powers we've got equipped. At the start of the demo we had a choice of 3 different thin blood types. We actually went with the nebulation skill, which is kind of skills based around sort of using kind of mist form and your ability to turn into mist or use mists to kind of choke enemies. So we're about to get rid of one of these shady characters using our Gale power, which I think it was called Gale in the demo, which you used to choke him out. Poor bloke. And this guy just gets a good thumping in the face. I'm going to talk a little bit more about combat later, because as you can see here, it's a little bit janky. But it comes into sort of better perspective a bit later in the demo. You can also pick up baseball bats. Again, they've said that one of the big focuses of the game isn't like equipping yourself with all these weapons. Like fundamentally, what is powerful about you is that you are a vampire. You have these insane vampire skills, but you can pick up weapons. There's almost sort of like an improvised quality to grabbing whatever's to hand, be it baseball bats, or a bit later you'll see us grabbing some guns and whatnot. This is the jungle. It's like a big sort of homeless population area, I guess, sort of underneath this sort of overpass. I think it's showing off some quite nice effects. I think while this demo does have a few rough edges, I think it is definitely a lot more attractive than the previous game, which is sort of known for its sort of janky rough edges. Here we're going to see sort of a heightened senses, which shows you places you can interact with the world. You'll see some little boxes that you can loot. It also reveals this resonance system, which is when you look at a person, you can tell their emotional flavour based on the kind of colour of them, and also the kind of quality of them, should you choose to drink on them. This system is quite interesting. Basically, everyone has an emotional state, and depending on who you drink from and their emotional state at that time, depends on the kind of buffs you get. That's one of the boxes there that you can loot. So if you eat someone with like a high pain resonance, you'll get a specific buff. If you eat someone who's full of lust, you'll get a different buff. Here we get a chance to sneak up on someone using our mist form. So based on the powers you have, you're going to approach the world differently, because we can turn into basically a big old vampire cloud. We can suck ourselves through here, which looks very handy. And we can pop out and feed on this guy. This is a fatal feed. It basically means you get maximum blood, but you get less resonance. You have a choice of how much you're going to drink from people. If you hit this sort of sweet spot, you can get maximum resonance, but maybe a bit less blood. So it kind of depends what you're looking for in your character at that particular time. But we're going to dig deeper into the jungle here and hopefully discover Slug's whereabouts. There are some nefarious dealings happen down here. We see a queue of people, which can only be a bad thing, apparently. Very handy graffiti on the wall there for that vent as well. It's the subtlety that really wins me over. Yeah, so here you have a kind of choice of how to get into the building. You can pop up through this hole in the wall, or we can use our mist form, if we have it, to go through the air vent here, or we can just walk through the front door and engage in conversation, which is what we're going to try and do. The guy doesn't know you're a vampire, so we can try and sort of negotiate and intimidate him with some vampire big talk. Because our humanity is quite high, we haven't descended too much into our sort of vampiric state. We have some human responses open to us that we might not have later. So let's see how this plays out. Yeah, that's it. Tell him I'm a fucking vampire. That's how we roleplay it. Actually, this is Brendy making the decisions, so I think he was actually quite gentle. He's a gentle boy, is Brendy. Go on, Brendy, do something horrible. That's it. That's it. Give him some... No. Oh, yeah. I should be going. Weak.
Especially after I empty this clip in you.
And this kicks off combat. Now here you get to see the combat in action. There's been, I say, a relatively negative reaction to this demo based on other people's playthroughs and the comments under them, based on how rough some of the combat looks. I mean, the AI is not great. It kind of just sort of stands there and waits for you to wail on it. And, you know, this talk of you know, you're meant to feel like this very powerful vampire. You know, you can play as the vampire you want. And it sort of comes through in that if you watched other playthroughs of this same demo, you can see how people had other powers. You can make people explode their blood. You can sort of enter this sort of rage thing which pushes everyone out. We're kind of choking people with mist and basically relying on grabbing their weapons, but it is a little bit like lots of people standing around in a room waiting to be punched in the face, which is kind of gives you sort of flashbacks to, you know, the first game, in terms of it also released in quite a rough state. I mean, one of the things when we talk to the team about Bloodlines 2, you know, when you sort of say, you know, what is a big focus, you know, they acknowledge, well, the first game has this reputation, so, you know, it's the opportunity to kind of do this world right and do it with a bit of polish and not make the same mistakes. And while it has got many months before it comes out, you know, currently, I don't know if this shows it in its best light. I mean, it looks quite confusing. You've got this sort of dart dash move, you're kind of dashing around randomly. People can't seem to keep up with you. I mean, you look powerful, which I guess is part of the vampire thing, and I should say it was a hands-off demo, so, you know, you never really know how something feels until it's kind of under your thumbs, but it gives me the fear a little bit. But I imagine they'll read all this feedback after E3, and a lot of focus will go into it. Oh, we just drank someone with a different resonance there, which is why it flashed pink. Get some of that tasty, was that a passion resonance? But this whole area, like, we didn't have to have this fight. We could have negotiated our way in. And we did ask the one of the writers about how much of the game can be played without combat, as it looks a little bit ropey at the moment. And they say, you know, it is a game with a big narrative thrust, you know, kind of talking your way out of situations, thinking your way around situations is a very big part of the game. There are moments where you'll be forced to engage with it, where you'll have to fight, or, you know, you'll have to make a hard decision. You know, it's not a game you can just sort of slink your way through. I mean, you're a bloodthirsty vampire fundamentally, so these things have to happen. But there is a bigger focus, I think, on talking than maybe has been shown in this demo. I blame bloodthirsty Brendy, who probably just wanted to see as much of combat and aggressive vampire powers as possible. And here is old Slug Man. Again, this could go either way. I mean, if we'd had that secondary objective, we could more aggressively pursue his demise. But we have lots of options to talk through. You know, we can approach him in different ways. It'll have different outcomes. I'll let you see how this one plays out. See it, Brittany couldn't make his mind up.
Interesting that you know my name and I don't know yours. You're the one I'm waiting for, Working for the big boys now, are we? Well, let me tell you something about them. I've been selling them secrets for years, and they still treat me like a dirty habit. No gratitude at all, unless I've got something for them. Look around. This is it. All it's amounted to. You don't get it, do you? Do you even know what I'm selling them? They could kill you just to keep you from telling anyone they bought it. But just because they don't really need a reason. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm in a hurry, and what happens to you isn't my problem. Give me the cash. Maybe you're smarter than I gave you credit for. Okay, it's a deal. Obviously, I don't have the data on me. I stashed it in a yellow tent by the highway. I figured if they wanted it bad enough, they'd be more willing to let me go than spend all night searching this catastrophe. And now that I have my money, I can get the fuck out of Seattle. And if you're smart, you'll consider the same. We good here?
Brendy's going to be kind. Let him go. Very nice. We've avoided extra bloodshed and a bit more janky combat with it. And we get the data, which means we can return to our vampire contact in the nightclub and give her the data, though we have the option to lie, just take the data for ourselves, or to sell it back to her. So there's always options. Like, even in this little slice of the demo, you can see it kind of branching out, or you can see where it would branch out, or how you can do different things. Of course, we're here in a blind spot, which means we're free to try out some of our more unpleasant abilities. This is a thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy? Well, it's a blood boil, as you'll see. Boom. That is very messy. And we lose a bit of our humanity because of that, because you can't just go around making poor people of Seattle explode. I imagine this must be a bit of a nightmare to demo, because so much of it is in the wider world, the setting, the lore, and if you've read any of our pieces on Rock Paper Shotgun that Alice has done with the team, like, they really go into it deep, and you know, they can talk for hours about individual elements, individual clans, individual characters. You know, I think it's going to be one of these games that you can kind of really sink into. Maybe not the kind of thing which absolutely sort of sings when it's shown in a little 20-minute burst where you're just trying to push through, kind of get to some action. If you are completely new to the game, I do recommend reading those pieces, although, as they tell us in an interview afterwards, the game is completely self-contained. It doesn't rely on any prior knowledge. Obviously, you will get the extra kind of lore and you'll have familiarity with it. One of the key things is that because you are a new vampire, you do get kind of inducted and introduced to the world by other characters, which acts as a kind of nice way of introducing you to the kind of rules and the story, you know, which is something the first game did too. So, you know, I don't think there's any fear there that, you know, if you're coming to this, you know, you feel like you have to play it, although it is recommended. The original game has got a lot going for it. I mean, it's been constantly modded and improved. It's probably one of the most carefully looked after games by its community, which I think shows the passion for it, and why hopefully this one will deliver a similar level of fervent fandom.
I promise you, I can offer you more desirable terms in the future if you can overlook a few dollars tonight. There's your money. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get back to the Chantry to report on tonight's events. Perhaps I shall find you again one of these nights? Until then.
That's everything we were shown in the demo, and you've seen it all through. Hopefully it all makes sense. If you do have any questions, just pop them in the comments and we will do our best to answer them. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you've watched some of our other E3 coverage. We've got a hands-on preview of Doom Eternal, we've got some stuff on Wolfenstein, we've got some stuff on Sims, so that's two incredibly violent games and a bit of virtual people having a beach holiday, so we like to mix it up. If you did enjoy this video, please do like it, write nice things in the comments. If you really enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to Rock Paper Shotgun for more like it? We'll have a lot more on Vampire coming up. It's one of our most anticipated titles. I think they've got some time to tidy it up by March 2020 when it's due, so I guess we'll wait and see what they deliver. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you again soon. Bye for now.